Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going all the way back to the beginning,
Oh, wow.
the creation narrative from the book of Genesis.
Okay.
And this is more than just a story.
Right.
It's really the foundation of Judeo-Christian tradition, and we're going to unpack what makes it so compelling, even thousands of years later.
Yeah, it all starts with a scene that couldn't be more different.
Okay.
From the world we know, a formless void.
Oh, wow.
A darkness so complete, it's hard to even imagine.
It's like hitting the cosmic reset button,
Right.
wiping the slate clean before anything begins.
Exactly.
And then what's the first thing?
Light.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating on so many levels.
Yeah.
Just think about how many cultures and religions across history associate light with knowledge, with goodness, with the divine itself.
Right.
Genesis is tapping into something very primal here.
It's not just a physical phenomenon.
Right.
It's symbolic from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And then just as we're getting used to the light, we get separation of light from darkness.
The opposites.
Yeah, day and night. Our first experience of order.
Structure.
Yeah, emerging from that initial chaos.
And that theme of order from chaos is something that really runs through this whole creation narrative.
Okay.
It's like watching a symphony be composed,
Oh, okay.
starting with the broadest strokes and then getting more detail and complexity.
So we have light, we have a sense of time. What comes next in this grand scheme?
Well, next comes the firmament.
The what?
The firmament.
Okay.
A concept that might seem a little strange to us today, but to the ancient Hebrews,
Okay.
it was this vast dome-like structure
Oh.
that separated the waters above from the waters below.
I was like, their understanding of the universe, a sky that literally holds back a celestial ocean.
Yeah, and again, we see that separation.
Right.
Categorization, the drive to impose order on the world.
It's like, that's a theme.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
And then with a grand flourish, the waters recede and dry land appears.
Okay.
Earth is born.
Wow.
What I find so fascinating here is that God names the land. It's
Mhm.
almost like foreshadowing of what humans will do, our urge to categorize, to make sense of the world around us.
So we're not just observers.
No.
We're inherent categorizers.
Yes.
Constantly trying to impose order on the world, just like the Creator does in Genesis.
That's a great point.
And speaking of categories,
Yes.
the next step is the emergence of plant life.
Right.
All sorts of vegetation springing forth.
Oh, kinds.
Yeah, each after their kind.
Right.
It's like a blueprint for life, a set of rules for how things reproduce
Mm-hmm.
and maintain their unique identities.
It's like the text is hinting at the concept of species.
Okay.
Not in a modern scientific sense, of course, but
Right.
there's a clear understanding that different kinds of plants exist, each with its own distinct nature and purpose.
So with these first 3 days, you've really got these basic building blocks of a world in place.
I think so.
Light and darkness sky and earth plant life.
You got it. The stage is set. But it's still a pretty empty stage, and that's where the next 3 days come in.
Oh.
The days of populating the world, bringing in all those fascinating and diverse creatures that make life so vibrant.
I'm fascinated by the creation of celestial bodies,
Yeah.
the sun, moon, and stars.
Yeah.
And they're not just pretty decorations.
No, they're not.
They have a very specific purpose.
Right. They're meant to mark time, to be signs, and for seasons, and for days and years.
Yeah.
Words that would have resonated very deeply with people who relied on the heavens for everything.
Oh, yeah.
From agriculture to navigation.
Imagine what it would have been like to live in a time when the movements of the sun and moon were so central to your life.
Yeah.
No calendars, no clocks, just the rhythm of the cosmos guiding your days and years.
A completely different way of experiencing time.
Yeah, it is.
And it really highlights how deeply intertwined the physical world and human life were in the ancient world.
Absolutely. We have light, we have land, we have timekeepers.
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, next we move from the heavens to the waters, and then to the land.
Okay.
The 5th day sees the creation of aquatic creatures and birds,
Okay.
filling the seas and skies with life and motion.
Lots of movement.
And here's where we encounter that powerful command. Be fruitful and multiply.
Oh, wow.
It's the first time that phrase appears, and it speaks volumes about the inherent purpose of life.
Okay.
To procreate, to continue the cycle of existence.
And that theme of intentionality, of deliberate plan behind creation
Oh,
is
yeah.
something we see again and again.
Absolutely.
It's like a master artist carefully adding each element
Right.
to the canvas, making sure everything has its place and its purpose.
And then comes that 6th day.
Right.
The dayland animals burst onto the scene each after their kind.
Yeah.
Again, we see that emphasis on distinct species, on the inherent order and diversity of life.
And then, of course, the creation of humans.
Ah, yes.
It's this moment where the narrative takes a completely different turn.
This isn't just another species being added to the mix.
Yeah.
Humans are created in our image after our likeness. A phrase that has sparked countless debates and interpretations.
I bet.
It speaks to our unique relationship with the divine,
Okay.
our capacity for reason, for self-awareness, for moral choice.
It's a concept that sets the stage for the rest of the biblical story,
I agree.
for our understanding of human nature
Yeah,
and our relationship with the world around us.
absolutely. And speaking of our relationship with the world, humans are given dominion over all other creatures.
Now, that one little word has been the source of so much discussion over the centuries.
It really has.
It raises these profound questions about responsibility stewardship
Mm-hmm.
and how we're supposed to relate to the rest of creation.
Right. Are we meant to be benevolent caretakers or ruthless exploiters?
That's a question we'll continue to wrestle with.
Yeah.
But what's clear is that this concept of dominion is really central to understanding the human role
Absolutely.
in the world as it's depicted in Genesis. But before we get too deep into that, let's take a step back
Okay.
and appreciate that final touch in the creation process. Plants as food for both humans and animals.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it? This
Yeah.
idea of a harmonious ecosystem where all creatures are interconnected and provided for.
Yeah.
It really completes the picture of creation, setting the stage for the next chapter in the story.
So 6 days, countless acts of creation, a world teeming with life. But this is just the beginning of our exploration.
It is.
Join us in part 2 as we delve deeper into these recurring themes, symbolism,
Okay.
and the profound questions raised by this ancient and enduring creation narrative.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Genesis creation narrative. I'm excited to continue exploring this text with you.
Me too.
Right.
We covered the what of creation, that step-by-step process.
Right.
But now I want to dig into the why, the deeper meaning woven into this ancient story.
Okay.
One of the most striking things you'll notice reading through Genesis is that recurring phrase,
Uh-huh.
and God saw that it was good.
Yes.
It's almost like a refrain
It is.
appearing after each act of creation.
Absolutely.
It's more than just an observation, though, right?
Oh, it's much more than that.
It's a declaration of value,
Yes.
an affirmation that everything created has inherent worth,
Mm-hmm.
purpose.
And meaning.
It really adds another layer to the narrative, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It imbues the whole creation process with intentionality,
Hey.
with this sense that goodness is woven into the very fabric of existence.
So nothing is accidental. Nothing is without meaning.
Right. And it's interesting because even though the story begins with that formless void,
Yeah.
that sense of chaos, there's already this underlying order, this purpose unfolding.
It's like watching a master plan come to life.
That's a great way to put it. It speaks to this idea that even in chaos, there's this divine order at work, a plan meticulously carried out.
It's a theme that runs through the whole Bible and beyond.
Absolutely.
We talked about order from chaos, the significance of light,
Mm-hmm.
the human drive to categorize.
Right.
What else stands out to you in terms of big picture ideas?
Well, we can't overlook that creation culminates with humanity.
Right. And it's not just that we're the last creatures to appear, but the way we're described, made in God's image, given dominion over the rest of creation.
It's a powerful statement.
Very powerful.
It makes you think about our responsibility,
Absolutely.
our relationship with the divine, our role in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. And that's what makes this Genesis creation account so enduring.
Okay.
It's not just a story about the past.
Right.
It's a text that continues to shape our understanding of ourselves,
Yeah.
our relationship with the divine, and our role in the world.
So how do we make sense of this ancient story in a world where science offers different explanations for the origins of the universe and life?
Right. It's a question a lot of people wrestle with.
It's a valid question.
It is, and it's important to remember that this Genesis account wasn't written as a scientific textbook.
Okay.
It's using symbolic language imagery narrative
Yeah.
to convey these profound truths about the nature of God, creation, and humanity. So it's not necessarily about choosing between a literal interpretation of Genesis and a scientific understanding of the world.
No, not at all. I think there's room for both.
Okay, so there are lots of different ways to approach and interpret the Genesis creation account.
Absolutely. Even within religious communities, there's a whole range of views.
Oh, wow.
Some people hold to a literal 6-day creation, while others see it as more poetic or allegorical.
And even within those interpretations, there's room for dialogue and understanding different perspectives.
Absolutely. The key is to approach the text with respect, recognize its historical and cultural context, and be open to the different ways it can be understood. What do you think? Does this resonate with you?
It does. What's so fascinating is that even with all these different interpretations,
Yeah,
the Genesis account still speaks to us today.
it does.
It raises timeless questions about where we come from, what our purpose is,
Right.
what it means to be human in a world that we share with so many other creatures.
Those are questions that have resonated with people for millennia, and they continue to challenge us to think deeply about our place in the cosmos.
It's like the ancient text is holding up a mirror, forcing us to confront these fundamental questions about ourselves,
Yeah,
our relationship with the world around us. And that brings us to something we touched on earlier, the concept of dominion and what that means.
right.
It's a topic that deserves a deeper dive.
I agree. It's a word that has been interpreted in so many ways throughout history.
Yeah.
And it's at the heart of many contemporary debates about our responsibility towards the environment and the ethical treatment of animals.
It's almost like that one word, dominion, encapsulates this whole challenge of figuring out what it means to be human in a created world.
I think you're right.
So let's dive in.
Yeah.
What are some of the different ways you've seen dominion interpreted, and how do those interpretations play out in the real world?
Well, one interpretation that's been prevalent throughout history is that dominion equals domination.
Okay.
Humans are at the top of the hierarchy, and the rest of creation is there to serve our needs. Sadly, this view has often been used to justify the exploitation of natural resources
Yeah.
and the disregard for animal welfare.
That idea of dominion as domination has definitely had some negative consequences, hasn't it?
It has, but thankfully there are other ways to understand dominion.
Oh, okay. So what are they?
Well, many scholars and theologians argue that dominion should be understood as stewardship.
Stewardship. Okay.
It's about responsibility, like caring for and protecting creation.
That feels more in line with that harmonious ecosystem idea.
Exactly. We're not just rulers, we're caretakers entrusted with something precious.
Which brings us back to that phrase, and God saw that it was good.
Right.
If creation is inherently good, then surely our role is to be responsible stewards, not reckless dominators.
I agree, and it connects to the whole creation care movement within many faith communities.
Okay.
It's not just about abstract theology, it's about taking action to protect the planet.
It sounds like this ancient text is still incredibly relevant today.
It is, and it's not just about environmental issues.
Uh-huh.
This idea of dominion also makes you think about how we treat each other,
Okay.
how we use power and influence. It's relevant for social justice, for ethical decision-making.
Wow. That's quite a legacy.
It is. It's amazing how these ancient texts can still challenge us.
Yeah, they offer new ways of seeing ourselves in the world.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what does this Genesis creation narrative mean for you?
That's a good question. For me, it's a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of the responsibility that comes with our human capacities for reason, creativity, moral choice.
I love that.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a call to action, a challenge to live in a way that honors that goodness of creation, not through domination, but through stewardship, compassion, recognizing that balance that sustains life.
Beautifully said.
So to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas,
Yeah.
keep asking questions, and keep engaging with this Genesis creation narrative, because even after thousands of years, it still has so much to teach us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, how this